Welcome to the American Shoulder Nebula Surgeons Podcast. I'm your host, Peter Chalmers, a shoulder nebula surgeon at the University of Utah in Salt Lake City, and I'm joined today by my co-host, Brian Waterman, a sports and shoulder surgeon at Wake Forest in North Carolina. Brian, how are you?
Hey, Peter. Good evening.
Well, I'm so glad you're here with me. Before we get started, I should mention the views expressed in this podcast do not necessarily reflect the views of the American Shoulder Nebula Surgeons Society, the University of Utah, the University of Colorado, or the institutions of any of our guests. Today, we have our annual interview with the outgoing ASES president, Dr. Joaquin Sanchez-Sotelo, and it is an incredible honor for us to have Joaquin back on as a guest. Many listeners know Joaquin, but for those of you who don't, he's the chief of the Shoulder Nebula Service in the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. He's accomplished so much in his career with hundreds of papers, fellows, residents, awards. He's been a tireless advocate for the ASES, and our society absolutely owes him a huge debt of gratitude. On a personal note, I've learned so much from Joaquin, and I feel so fortunate that he's a shoulder nebula surgeon and not a hip and knee surgeon. So Joaquin, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you to both of you for hosting me tonight. It's such a pleasure to be here.
So tell us, Joaquin, was it always your dream to become ASES president? Like, was this a goal for you for a long time?
Not at all. As you know, Peter, Brian knows this too. I come from Spain originally, and my father was an orthopedic surgeon. And to be honest, I never, ever even had a dream of being an orthopedic surgeon at a place like Mayo Clinic. So that for me was a major accomplishment. I never thought about being president of ASES. What happened, though, is that as we all get involved into different aspects of our professional careers, you start to meet people. And many of the people that I met that really made an impact on me and eventually became mentors, they all were really involved with ASES. And then I started to just get involved into committees, just to understand how the society functions and what could I do to help out. And first I was member of a committee, then I was chairman of a few committees, and then I applied to become part of the board just to really understand, what the society did. And that was my motivation to then be considered. But I only decided to think about a possibility of leading ASCS for a year after I finished my term at the board. That's when I realized, there is something that I can do now to help other members, and maybe it's my time to help for a year.
Yeah, Joaquin, I mean, you've had an incredible year. And as we, roadmap the steps to success, kind of one of the things that always comes up is, are these intentional steps? Do you think about every small step in the way, or was it just more of a natural progression within the organization?
That's such a good question, Brian. So I think we are all different. For me, I'm a planner. Like, I like to plan things. So once I knew that I was selected to eventually be president, likely you get to know that 2 years in advance. Then the question becomes, what the hell am I going to do to really make a difference? Because I think all of us want to make a difference in whatever we do with our family, with our professional life, with our patients, and also with leadership or advocacy or otherwise. So I did have 2 or 3 goals in mind that I have discussed, I think, with both of you separately occasionally. One of them was to try to transform the mentality of our members to understand that today, in 2025 or soon to be 2026, a professional society is much more than what it used to be. Like, if you think about gynecology or general surgery or internal medicine and how all the societies started decades ago, it was mostly about education and research, and that's the case still today. And it's also the case for ASES. But to be a professional today, what that means, professional, requires so much more, including coding and billing, advocacy, networking, traveling abroad. And luckily, we have a society that provides members value that is above and beyond what used to be a society. So I really wanted to convey that message. And I knew that we were doing a lot at ASES, but people didn't actually know. That's why I came with the idea of these weekly messages, where what I try to do is showcase a committee every week. And the feedback that I received from Europe especially was incredible, because I ran into many friends of mine in Europe and they were saying, wow, ASES is doing so much. And I was thinking, we're not doing any more than another year. We're just showing what we're doing. So that was something that was important for me. And then finally, I did want to have a little bit of emphasis on the elbow, So we came up with the idea of having an elbow course that will happen only every other year, because I think that courses every year sometimes are too much in this landscape of industry, concerns about funding and so on. So those are the three things that I really wanted to convey, that ASES is more than a professional society, that we are doing a lot and people have to know how much good work the members are doing, and finally bring the elbow back to the front of our society if at all possible.
I just love your framing there. I love your framing that the society is so much more, because I had the same experience. I joined the society thinking, okay, this is like exists around a meeting. It's about education. And the more involved I get, the more I see that the SES does and the more important it becomes. And I love the work you've done to highlight that. And I think that's such a beautiful framing for the approach you had to the year.
And the nice thing, Peter, is that we have many members now, right? And we are all different. There are people that are really good, for example, at advocacy. And I cannot go into the details right now, but we have fought really hard internally to protect how much we get paid for reverse arthroplasty, for example. People don't know that yet, but that's a minor thing that we have done. If you don't have the right people to advocate, maybe your compensation suffers. Other people, for example, are really good at organizing courses. So they run a fantastic course, like the revision course that Bahid, Entesari, and Surena Namdari organized, was top notch, with specimens that had implants in place and so on. Other people are really good at trying to host traveling fellows, and expanding that program. So we are really lucky because we have so many members that want to serve in different capacities, and they actually have different skill sets. So then all together we grow as an incredible machine to really serve our members and our patients, basically.
Certainly, I think that's the strength of the SES, is the involvement of its members, and that's so evident when you go to one of our meetings. You've been through this whole year. Can you pick out, what was the most memorable experience? What's one memory when you think back over your year that was the most memorable, the most thing you cherish the most?
I hope I don't start crying again, but it was my presidential address to ASES, because the way that the society works, as you know, is you get selected as president to be 2 years prior, then you work your way up, understand what you want to do, work all year long, and that is the opportunity to address the members and tell your fellow members how you think ASES should move into the future. And I spent, you can't imagine how many hours, Peter and Brian, thinking about the content. What do I say? I have to motivate people. How do I do that? And as you know, I really value not only my job, but also friends and family and things like that. So I had my family in the front row, as you know. So for me, the most memorable time was to basically say goodbye as president, feeling that I had been able to contribute a little bit to the society, and also knowing that we are in such great hands with the people that are coming after me. And because we have a president a year, and we only have 42 to date, there is so much opportunity for many other people in the following 25 to 50 years to be presidents and lead. So we're just beginning. I think the future is incredible. But for me, it was the most memorable time, is to close the year saying, this is what I did. I hope you liked it. And my family is here to witness it.
Yeah, Joaquin, I must admit, my eyes started to sweat a little bit as well, giving your presidential address. Just really incredible texture you lend to it. And it's such a personal experience for you. And I love that you wear your passion on your sleeve. I love that you're always so intentional in your approaches. And, often in this context where we're dealing with organizations that are having a little bit of a crisis, the ASES is thriving. And so I'm kind of curious, what are the greatest challenges that you see the ASES facing into the future?
I am not worried, Brian, the way I see ASES right now, because I think we have all the ingredients to be successful and very sustainable over the next 10 to 15 years. Now, things can change, of course, but we have so many strengths. So, for one, our members, like Peter was already mentioning, when we open up the call for nominations for all the committee positions, every year we have to leave out 20% of the members that are applying because there is no room, So when you have a society where everyone wants to donate their time, and remember that no one gets paid for this, and you have to spend nights and weekends working on papers to submit to the society for your, summaries of your committees, phone calls at night and things like that. So the members are incredible. We have a really good national office. Anna Quintanilla and her team, they do everything for us in such a good way. They're incredible quality. The foundation has grown a pretty substantial corpus now that will continue to grow. So we actually have funding. So I don't see any major threats. The only worry that I think our members have to some extent is that there is this sense that other specialties are becoming protective of their field. People bring up, as you very well know, the CAQs for hand surgery or for sports medicine, and some of our members that are heavy on shoulder arthroplasty, they feel that they should have the right to advertise that and be more prominent. That's maybe the only minor thing. It's interesting because we have grown from a very small society. When I joined, as you know, there were a few over 200 members, and now we are 1,600. And even that growth has been accommodated well. So I am not very concerned at this point about anything other than making sure that we protect our members so that they get still access to the practice that they need and to the compensation that they are really, indebted to.
Yeah, and certainly to piggyback on that, if the annual meeting is any indication of the state of affairs, I mean, you're really thriving with your program co-chairs. They just did a remarkable job of really delivering on so many different fronts. And I think one of the key things that you've emphasized throughout your presidency is that we're better together, that we all have aspects that we can contribute. I'm curious, was there an aspect of the meeting that you were particularly fond of? Maybe something that you were surprised by?
Yeah, so when John Barlow and Rob Harder, who, as you know, are incredible. I mean, John Barlow spent a lot of time with Peter traveling around Europe, so he knows him very well. And John is great, and so is Rob. When we talked about the program, one of the mandates of the ASES strategic plan is to reimagine live educational events. Those are the words: reimagine live educational events. And the reason why that was creative is because I think many people that go to meetings to learn are tired of a constant flow of PowerPoints and very little time for questions and not having more than one format. So when we thought about this, and also in line with the fact that the ASES offers to the members activities that are beyond a classic society, to have these special interest groups was a bet that could have gone really sideways, because we were taking prime time just before the launch CME activities of industry for a fair amount of time to see if people were interested in mission work or fellowships, or leadership. And I went to every single room because I was trying to gauge and take a pulse of how successful it was. And I think those actually were good. And I actually ran into people at the airport, two individuals that told me, I really wanted to do mission work forever. I didn't know where to start. That half an hour that I spent in that room really helped me understand that I want to do it, and now I know how to contact people. And then the other angle is that, and this is very interesting, classically, the president can bring a speaker that is not a shoulder and elbow surgeon for the Codman Society. And many choose to bring either a coach or a very famous sports player because they have done surgery on him, and then you will listen to someone that played baseball or football at the very highest level. But I wanted an angle on wellness, so I brought, Dr. Amit Sood, who I think did a great job. And in parallel, my partner, Christopher Kamp, had started this human optimization project, so he came with that angle as well. And when I talked to Dr. Adwal about giving the near lecture, I never told him what to talk about, but I told him, you cannot talk about science of the shoulder only. It has to be something that is more motivational. And it's funny that the three of them came in their lectures from different angles to the same content. So that was a surprise for me, but something that really made me very happy. And also to see the parallel educational pathways where if you're an elbow person, you could listen to elbow all day long. Or if you really love sports, you had your game rooms, So I think those were the elements that we really enjoyed. The special lectures having the same emphasis on wellness, the special interest groups, and then the parallel pathways for learning that people can choose to go to one or the other.
I agree. I thought John Barlow and Rob Hartsfield did a phenomenal job with the meeting. John, as you know, is a close friend, and I know he put so much effort into it, and I really think it worked. I wanted to return very briefly to the CAQ, because that I think is one of the more controversial things within our society right now. I'm sure as you, multiple people tell me their opinion, and I've heard strong opinions on both sides. I guess what I want to ask you is, do you see this as an opportunity for us, or is it really a risk? And I guess I think it can be interpreted both ways. What are your feelings about like a shoulder arthroplasty CAQ?
Yeah, it's a very complex question to answer, Peter, because there is two layers to the question. One is what you just articulated, which is it really worth it and is it going to help you? And I actually don't know, because don't know if implementing a mandatory test or something like that is going to be something well received by the members or not. But the second layer is that it's not as easy as it sounds, in terms of taking into account what is the opinion of ACGME for fellowship accreditation, what is the board thinking from orthopedic surgery. We have now April Armstrong in the presidential line, and she is informing us of how difficult it is to get these things done, and you have all these elements. So I think what we have to do is find a way so that our members feel that if they are an ASES member, they can prove that they have the best possible education for complex shoulder and elbow surgery. But I'm not 100% that the mechanism is going to be for us a CAQ. And as you pointed out, this is very controversial. And if we ever do something as a society, I think we should have a session on it and discuss it and vote and take it very seriously. But again, even if we say, let's do it, it's not easy to do. So I think we are probably going to not be doing this very in the immediate future. But Tony Miniachi is very interested in looking into it. So he has a task force that is looking into it, and maybe they can inform the society in the next meeting and we can keep making decisions.
Yeah, and as you look to bridge the gap with Tony, and we're so excited for his presidency as well, what are the greatest opportunities you see for the ASES, and how might we capitalize these in the future? You've been so good at looking around corners. I'm just curious where you see us going next.
Yeah, so there is a few things that are exciting. One of them is that we are going to be hosting the International Congress of Shoulder and Elbow Surgery in Vancouver. So that's actually our ASES meeting for next year in September. And I think we have an opportunity to show the world, how well ASES can run and organize a meeting. My perception was that maybe a decade ago or 15 years ago, many of the French and Central European surgeons dominated as key opinion leaders for a good reason. They did great research, had great ideas. And now I get the impression that North American shoulder elbow surgeons are coming out with great ideas and great research, and we're leading the world only to help others, not to be boasting or anything like that. So I think a great opportunity for us is to show the world that ASES can organize a meeting for the whole world. And then, as you know, things get complicated a little bit with the specialty day, because as of now, we have informed AAOS that we will have no specialty days in 2027. And I don't know how that's going to evolve in the future, because the idea as of now for 2027, as you know, is to have an open meeting in the winter that Tony Miniachi will run, and a closed meeting in October that April Armstrong will run. And then the question becomes, is it better to completely part away from AAOS permanently or for a decade and have an open meeting and a closed meeting? Or should we try to go back to AOS and see if we can come up with a way to provide education to other surgeons that are in North America that are not ASES members? And I think that's an opportunity, but also a big unknown.
So challenging to navigate that, and I think it's the right decision for 2027, but I really like the way you laid it out to say we need to continuously reevaluate that. That sounds like a hard decision.
It's very
Tell me
difficult to
what do
make.
you
And one thing that I was going to mention, Peter, is that in terms of advocacy, like I think Brian already mentioned, that together we're stronger. That's very true for advocacy. So AAOS does a great job coordinating advocacy efforts, and at a minimum, we must work with AAOS to be, present in the advocacy arena. We just have to think about how can we reimagine education also in the AOS front so that it makes sense for ASES to still participate. And I think there is a lot of unknowns right now in how that's going to evolve.
That sounds hard. What were some of the other kind of really hard parts of this job? Like, what do you think was the hardest part of leading the ASES this past year?
sometimes we had to make decisions that were difficult. For example, writing a letter to the president of AOS saying, guess what? We are not having a meeting with you guys in 2027. As you can imagine, that they didn't like it, and I completely understand. So Dr. Amendola sent me a very nice letter back, and we went forth and back. So that was difficult. Also, there was, as I said, the need to very quickly send people to advocate so that we will have adequate compensation for reversal of the arthroplasty and anatomic. So that was another source of tension. Other than that, nothing else. As I said, the central administration office is so good. So typically, a president will meet virtually through Zoom or otherwise with Ana Quintanilla and with the chair of the foundation every week or every other week. And then we have meetings for the board and the presidential line every 2 months. And then, things work really well. So the only couple of stressful things were, deciding about the AAOS specialty day and trying to really protect our income in the field of shoulder arthroplasty.
Can I just piggyback on that? Because I don't think we do a good enough job on this podcast of discussing just how great the SES staff is. Brian and I work with them extensively for scheduling the podcast and pushing it out to social media, and they are exceptional. I mean, I'm so impressed with the work that they do and the dedication they have. And I cannot say enough good things. And I think that's what you're saying too.
I cannot agree more. Anna coordinates everyone, and everyone in the office is doing a great job, like everyone. But as you know, Steve, Melodoc, and Caitlin are doing more what they call special projects, and then Angela and Shannon are more running like the education slash meetings. And just as an example, if you knew how much work Angela did to make sure that we had the right pricing for every coffee and every meal so that we actually didn't lose money, orchestrate all the rooms, have the AV team organize she's an incredible event planner, Then we have now Bridget, who is doing marketing, and she's doing a fantastic job, so our central office is great. And then we have in the foundation, Rob and John Reyes. So we're very well positioned in that regard and luckily we have funding to be able to afford them. And that's one of our strengths, is that we can actually pay their salaries, which are very well deserved, and they do a great job for us.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. It's hard not to chime in and really pile it on for the staff. I mean, it's a lean staff, right? But they're such a high-touch group. I've really enjoyed working with them. So shout out to the administrative staff of ASES. We're so grateful for everything you do in the background. Tell me this, Joaquin, in terms of the post-presidency, what's that look like? I'm sure they don't just re-release you into the wild. Where do you go now after your critical role as president of ASES?
Yeah, so ASES is very heavy on the president, to be honest. So Javier Duralde, he talks about it, how the presidential year is the heavier one in terms of like load, and also that people listen to what the president has to say. So my job now is to organize a specialty day, which is still happening maybe for the last time in 2026, and to make sure I can help Tony with any questions that he has. And of course, I connect to every of the calls that are present. And then my last contribution will be to be the chair of the nominating committee and basically choose the next leaders. And of course, if there is activities that need ASES representation and Tony cannot go for whatever reason, then I can, of course, fill in for him. But now it is his year, and I think he's going to be doing a great job. He's very well organized and very creative, so I cannot wait for all his successes.
Well, I can't imagine this will be the end of your involvement, and Tony, I know, is going to do a great job, and we're excited to work with him. I wanted to transition a little bit. We went through your history on the last episode, and it is such a great story about, your travels from Spain to Minnesota. And I think you've been really successful. You're exiting this year in which you've accomplished so much and done so many great things for our society. Many of our listeners on the podcast are people young in their training. They're residents and fellows and junior faculty. And what advice, like if you could project advice to that group of people, what advice would you give them if they were to say, if I could look at my career later on and accomplish what Joaquin has accomplished, I would be satisfied with it? How do they get there? Like, what is the pathway?
That's a great question and so difficult to answer. I think one key element for me is that we are all different, like I mentioned. There are people that shine in some aspect of their skills and some are completely different. So I think what's very important is to, number one, find your motivation. That's why when I gave the presidential address, I always open these presentations with the book by Simon Sinek, Start With Why, because I think it's so important. So for the listeners that are thinking, what do I do to, be a successful shoulder and elbow surgeon? You have to decide what is success for you. For some people, maybe that they love research and they want to publish 500 papers. For others, maybe that they love their patients. For others, they love advocacy. So whatever is your why. And then something I mentioned also in my lecture is that in the past, when I was at least in training, people used to talk about the fact that you should always identify your weaknesses and see if you can improve them. That's what I was told at the time. And later on, I think the conversation has changed, and now many experts in leadership tell you it's better not to work on your weaknesses, because if you're weak in something, it's unlikely you will ever be really strong. So identify your strengths and surround yourself with people that can complement you, because their strengths are your weaknesses. Find your motivations, and then if you combine your motivations and your strengths, that's what people call now the sweet spot of leadership. So I think it's worth it to take a piece of paper and a pen, not a computer, and to one morning, with a coffee or something, sit down and really write down what is it that you want to accomplish in your career, what's your motivation, and what do you want to do really. And something interesting is that when any of us take a piece of paper and a pen, the act of writing slows down the mental process. We think more slowly. And if you read the book about Think Slow, it really tells you that creativity comes when you're thinking slowly, not when you're thinking really fast. So I think, those are the advices that I would give. And anyone that knows him or herself, so self-awareness is important, and is a hard worker, the sky is the limit. I've seen so many people that are so bright, do so well. And you were asking me a little bit about, now what? You've been president of ASES, what's next? For me, my next is to help everyone that is around me. So what I want to do now is whatever I have learned over the last, decades of practice, I really want to help other people to basically achieve their best. And very likely the people that follow me will be way better than I am. And Dr. Murray, my mentor, always used to say, my boys have to surpass me. If they do, I was successful. And that's the way I feel. Anyone coming behind us, they are so much better than I was at their age. So that's really enlightening.
Yeah, it's funny, Joaquin, because you have such a track record of helping people out and reaching back and thinking about things. So I think an emotional awareness and intelligence is really one of your strong suits. But additionally, just to play off the themes related to your meeting, I really want to dovetail into this discussion about what are the key attributes, not just for professional, but personal success, both in terms of your family and your personal life.
Yeah, I mean, that's also difficult to explain, Brian, because I think we're all very different. And something that I have learned, and I mentioned this in my presidential address too, is that we all in our lives will have moments, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 moments where we are really in a bad situation. And that's what people call in leadership a crucible. Like this life event that is really testing you. Could be a divorce, it could be cancer diagnosis, it could be that your son died, it could be that you lost your house in a fire. All of us are going to have something unpredictable that comes to us and is going to try to take you down. And most of us that are surgeons are so resilient that we come out of those flames even stronger. So I think to build your strengths on any time that you actually fell to the ground because there was such a huge obstacle, I think is very important. And the second is that, when we all retire, it takes very little time for people to forget your names and that you're Dr. Neer, Dr. Morris. So many people in 50 years will not remember who was this funky Spaniard, Sanchez-Sotelo. So, but our children and grandchildren will never forget. So I think it's very important to balance your life. And we are all workaholics, starting with me. And I think it's really important to make an effort to say, I'm going to work really hard, but I'm also going to take care of my family, and I'm going to see my friends, and I'm going to take care of my health. I think that idea of having a balanced life. And the idea that Dr. Sud and Chris Camp mentioned about a full recovery is so important, because sometimes we have recovered and then we're not the same. But if you fully recover, then it's great. So today, before my 2 ASES activities, I had a journal club before this, and then the podcast with you guys today. I actually took a true break. I was an hour talking to my wife, playing with the children. We cooked dinner together. And then I felt that my mind was now ready to tackle intellectual discussion of papers or talking to you. So those are the main things that I have learned that can really help us be our best.
I feel so bad that we took you from your children, but I really do think that this is going to be really valuable, and I really appreciate you doing it with us. I want to ask, we want to give you an opportunity here, open forum. Is there anything else that you wish you could project out into the ASES ether? Anything else that, you wish that all of us knew?
I think we already have conveyed the message, that ASES, as of now, is probably the best professional society for orthopedic surgery in North America. And just to make sure that every member feels part of this big family, and on one hand is willing to serve, and on the other hand is interested in benefiting from all the value that ASES has to offer. So we're in this together. We're a big family of surgeons. We love our science. We love reverse arthroplasty. We love rotator cuff. We love sports. And I don't know, we just have such a great family of people that for the most part gets along really well. So just contribute to ASES and also use the fact that your society can offer so much to you as a member.
Absolutely. I mean, you've role modeled what it looks like to have these personal and professional relationships. You've led from the front. You've certainly kept the people at the bottom at the forefront as well. And we just really can't thank you enough, both personally and professionally. We owe you a debt of gratitude for what you've given to our organization as well as the broader community at large. So thank you from Peter and I.
And by the same token, we owe you guys, because the podcast that you run is incredible. I was telling Brian before you joined, Peter, that I listen to every episode, and you guys are doing such a good job, and I learn so much every time. And having now people from industry coming or talking about devices like last time is wonderful. So ASES owes you too for doing this fantastic job with the podcast. So thank you very much for having me tonight, and have a great night.
Great. Well, that's about all the time we have for this podcast. Thank you so much to Joaquin, our honored guest. For all those other shoulder and elbow listeners out there, please don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.